We are through 5 weeks of the NFL season, which lets me be a little bit more comfortable in saying that some of these teams, some of these coaches just flat out are terrible. It's not because they've played a hard schedule, it's not because the talent's not there, it's because they've checked out mentally or because they never checked in mentally. There are a lot of teams we can talk about, and why not start down on South Beach with the Miami Dolphins? What is going on? Adam Gase, are you ready to be the next Jim Tom Sula? You look like you're going to be one and done down there. Ryan Tannehill, he looks like he's about to be 5 and done. He's going to get cut at the end of the year. They're not going to pay him 4 years and $80 million. They're going to release him, and he's probably going to go to Cleveland. And speaking of Cleveland, you got to give Hugh Jackson a pass. Look, the Browns are terrible. They have no talent. We all understand that. I'm starting a quarterback for them next week, and still might not be the worst quarterback they start all season long. That being said, we're looking at a potential 0-16 situation here, and that's on the general manager. Alex Mack, really good center. Mitch Schwartz, really good right tackle. Both allowed to leave somehow, despite the Browns having about $100 million in cap space. What are you doing, Sashi Brown? I thought this was Moneyball, Sashi Brown. Well, Moneyball typically wins games, and right now you're 0-5 and you're not even competitive. The only reason you've hung in a couple of these games is because you're playing teams like the Dolphins occasionally, and you still lost because your kicker couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Then you go to the other side of the country, the San Francisco 49ers. You are starting Blaine Gabbert. Think about that. Let that soak in for a minute. That's right, a guy who was so bad that he was benched for Chad Henne by Jacksonville is starting for you over Colin Kaepernick, over everybody else on that miserable depth chart, and Chip Kelly. Maybe it's time to start playing a different brand of football. Yes, you had a couple 10-win seasons in Philly. You've never won a playoff game. You've never won anything significant. You are 1-4 in San Francisco. You are terrible. Your team is terrible, and your defense is being run ragged. It ought to be a really good time now without Navarro Bowman for the rest of the year, who unfortunately went down with an Achilles. Can't wait to watch that defense play 40 minutes of football while Blaine Gabbert bumbles and stumbles around for another 20. That team is awful and should be paying fans to come through the doors. Why is there so much terrible football? That's a great question. You would think coaches have access to film, but apparently not down in Carolina, where the Panthers are 1-4. And yes, this is a team that could bounce back. There are talented players on this team. Cam Newton, Greg Olsen, Jonathan Stewart among them when they are healthy. The problem is a coaching staff that can't figure out anything. Hey, Ron, stop giving up 500 passing yards, and 300 of which to Julio Jones. Maybe, I don't know, double him, triple him, put 11 guys on him, but don't let him beat you for 300 yards. He is a very good receiver. He's a great receiver, but nobody ever should be that good. Jerry Rice never had a 300-yard game. Come on now, Ron, figure it out. And speaking to that point, what are you doing when it comes to adjustments on the offensive side of the ball? This team has become predictable. There are a million turnovers happening week in and week out, whether it's Cam Newton or it's Derek Anderson. And that, while it falls somewhat on the quarterbacks, also falls on you. Defenders are waiting at this point. You have to switch it up. And then finally, we go to Kansas City. Look, the Chiefs are 2-2. They're not buried. It's not the end of the world. This is a team that has enough talent to have reeled off 10 wins in a row to end last year's regular season. But Andy Reid, maybe time to put the screen pass in mothballs. My God, how many screens are you going to throw? You were down 110-3 against Pittsburgh or something thereabout, and you were throwing screen passes. Maybe time to go past the line of scrimmage. You're allowed to do that. It's not 1900s NFL anymore. It's the 2000s. The forward pass is legal. Maybe give it a shot. Maybe try it at some point. Otherwise, Kansas City is going to be the most boring 8-8 team in the history of the world. NFL football, good most of the time, and then sometimes the most atrocious thing you have ever seen.